more than happy to do one or the other, but not both. So I would like to have that removed as a line item from the April approval and table it and discuss it. A couple more questions.
So regardless of our contract, we just get to start picking and choosing here what we don't like. So I got a few things I don't like here. So.
No, that's not what I said. What I
What
asked.
it's going like, it's like you're picking out things that you don't like and you're going to pull them out of the
Well,
payable regardless if we're covered by a negotiated contract.
With all due respect, Mr. Leach, I believe that under the Roberts rules, if there are board members who would like to have budget items removed from consent and discussed under further action, we're allowed to do that. So I respectfully request to have that tabled and discuss it later. I have a couple more things.
Consent agenda? Yes.
Oh, with the consent?
Yes, you have to do the consent agenda.
No, it does not. It has to do with the budget.
Okay, can I get a motion for the approval of consent agenda items minus the ISP job bank, co-pays, Rotary Club, and tuition reimbursement that have been tabled? We'll discuss later. Second.
Second.
Giorgio.
Yes?
Heine.
Yes.
Lambert. Leach.
No.
Thompson. Young.
Yes.
Zimmerman.
Yes.
Okay, next we have some information items. Hurry principals update.
Everything or just, no?
Anything very good?
I pretty much wrote it in, so.
Okay. Westfield. All good? Okay. We have some updates on science fair?
Yeah, we just wanted to kind of bring you up to speed. It's been a bit of a gap here. We do our North Prairie Science Fair at the end of January. And a couple of years ago, we made a change that we, instead of just simply awarding here, we have students that we select we believe would be capable of competing at the regional level. And so this year, out of there were 48 students total that were in our science fair, and 12 of them we felt had projects that were worthy of going to state. And 9 of those students went to state, and they were Kaylee Jackalow, Lauren Marshall, Graham Edwards, Edwin Ortiz, Kalina Hull, Alyssa Hall, Austin Marshall, Michaela Gehrig, and Sam Niergarter, who all went to a regional science fair and competed. And at that regional science fair, 4 of those 9 were placed either gold or silver and are going on to a state competition coming up here in a week or so. And those 4 were Alyssa Hall, Kaylee Jackalow, Sam Niergarter, and Graham Edwards. Unfortunately, Sam Niergarter and Graham Edwards had previous commitments on that weekend. They had no way of knowing that obviously in advance. And so we will be represented, however, by Alyssa Hall and Kaylee Jackalow the next month. And thanks for hopefully be back with big, large trophies from them after competing down there. So.
The lunch and milk price increase, we're currently charging $3 for lunches. My recommendation to be $3.50. We're currently paying $3.24. Last year we lost $40,000 in the lunch program. This year we look like we're on track to lose about $10,000. With the closing of Spring Bluff, we didn't lose as much because we decreased our cost of personnel. The milk prices are 30 cents, and my recommendation would be 35 cents, and we pay about 34 cents per milk. So that's an information item for the board members, but I've been sharing that with the board members. It's always, and I've talked to Kathy Zimmerman and some of the other board members, it's always tricky to find the right spot. If we raise the prices for lunches and or milk too much and fewer people participate, then we lose more money. So you're trying to find a way to get the number so that you keep the people coming. You get enough kids in there to keep it working and at the same time to make it pay for itself. So we try to go as close as we can to it, and the $3.50 comes pretty close, and that should generate real close to the $10,000 we're short and the 35 cents. So that'll be my recommendation at the next board meeting. And then student handbooks, and you have the student handbooks in this packet, right, Daniel? And there'll be some changes. Ted thought that there were a couple of things. The handbooks are a little like policies in that what we should have in those handbooks is how we're handling a situation. So if there's something in there that we're not using it specifically, because we get them from a company. So if there's something in there that's not exactly what we're doing, we need to make those changes so that the handbooks reflect before next year what we're doing. And so Ted will probably have 2 or 3 changes that we'll get to the board members prior to the next meeting, but we need to move it along so it's an information now item so that we can have it at the next meeting for an action item, even though you'll get a couple of changes coming along. Yep.
With that, we'll move on to our action items. I'll be looking for a motion to approve the final 2010-11 school calendar. The reason we're approving last year's or this current year's calendar again is because of the snow days.
Excuse me, may I ask again if I'm new at this? On the approval of the final school calendar for next year, I would like to know if we could table that because of the fact that we have a few months to.
This is this year's. We're approving it because we had to use one of the snow days.
Okay, I got
We
it.
have to send it into the state, let them know what days we
I
are.
thought that was a typo. Okay.
That's this year's.
Okay.
So can I get a motion for approval of the 2010-11 school calendar?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
I think we already approved next year's, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
We approved next year's already last. Get it all to the balance.
Heine,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Leach,
Yes.
Thompson, Nugent, Young,
Yes.
Zimmerman,
Yes.
Giorgio.
Yes.
Next are board policy changes, 4180 for pandemic preparedness.
That's a new policy, we haven't had it, so that, I mean, the reason we change there are things typically the state law comes out and/or federal laws, and they say you need to update your policies. The pandemic preparedness isn't changes, it's just that we haven't had it.
550, drug and alcohol-free workplace.
And there's more stuff in the footnotes, really, and it's federal laws, control, policy, and content. But there's almost all of those footnotes. There's 3 words in the policy that are part of the policy, means the substance, but it's mostly alcohol is not addressed in either the federal or state drug-free workplace. So they're just footnotes that the board members have in theirs.
590, abusing neglected child reporting.
The biggest change in it is it dealt with always abuse and neglect of children, and they added in it, or student age 18 to 21 with an individual with a disability. So they've expanded it that we have to report the students that are typically K to 12, but also 18 to 21-year-olds that we're aware of being abused that are mentally handicapped.
And 5120, ethics and conduct.
There's a lot of wording in it, and it's the district employees are expected to maintain high standards in their school relationships that demonstrate integrity, honesty, to be considered cooperative, to maintain professional and appropriate relationships with students, parents, staff members, and others. Any employee who sexually harasses a student or otherwise violates an employee's conduct standard will be subject to discipline up to and including discharge. And so there's also in there the school board ethics gift ban applies to all district employees, but other than that, there's no change.
I'm looking for a motion to approve board policies 4180, 550, 590, and 5120.
Motion to approve.
Lambert,
Yes.
Leach,
Yes.
Thompson, Young,
Yes.
Zimmerman,
Yes.
Giorgio,
Yes.
Heine.
Yes.
next item is, we're looking at voting on whether we're gonna reinstate regular transportation for next school year. Dennis, do you have that on this one before for motion, or?
The reason we're bringing this back, the board had decided to do away with transportation. But with the change in the board and a new board, if we lease buses again, like we did last year, this month, so like 3 or 4 days left, I can still get the same better price. And we have bus drivers. One of your questions is, why are we doing 3 runs? Well, one of our drivers resigned and took a job at the high school, and the reason she resigned is because she's aware of the fact that we're not going to have busing at this point. So what I'm trying to do is, if this board wants to do different, I can get a better price on the buses and we could keep our bus drivers. So my recommendation is still going to be to the board that we don't have busing next year, and I'm concerned with not having it, but at the same time, I'm trying to balance, and we asked the community when we had the community forums, and your question, the worst of the best of the worst choices. And the concerns were, people's belief was we needed to make cuts, and those were some of the cuts that we probably should make. So my recommendation is still the same, that we don't have busing, but I wanted the board to have the opportunity of making that decision. Yes, sir.
So I will be looking for a motion to either yes, reinstate the regular transportation for next school year, or no, not to reinstate it.
Can I ask a question before we?
Yes.
Okay, so when do you have to give the transportation company an actual?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Did you ask for an extension?
I did.
And they wouldn't?
No, I've had, this is an extension.
Okay, I mean, but you couldn't ask them for an additional extension, because what, I mean, if they were to give you an additional extension, so
Right.
we could talk about this further, I mean, it would be just, it wouldn't be
I could
anything
probably
off the
get,
bat.
I could get the extension, meaning he may well hold the buses for me for another month, but he would charge me more money for them. So there's like a, with the company, they have time frames, and if you purchase the buses within this time frame, they can produce them when it costs less for them, and so you get a better price. So if I do it by the end of this month, I get that price. If I don't, he probably would still hold 3 buses for me. I'm not sure, but he probably would.